Hey, I'm Daniel. I'm the founder and CEO of Slingshot.
Neil Parikh, founder and president, Slingshot. My story actually started a long time ago. I dropped out of medical school. I'd always wanted to build a business in health and wellness, so I co-founded Casper, the sleep company. And through that journey, all the way from starting it to taking it public, I actually became obsessed with mental health. There's a really deep connection between sleep and mental health. I'd struggled, I'd seen a lot of my family struggle, and then little by little became obsessed with trying to figure out how can we actually scale access to care for everyone.
I'm a machine learning engineer. I've been in AI for about 10 years. My dad's a psychologist, my mom's a social worker, so I've been after this mental health thing a long time. I did my undergrad in philosophy of psychology, postgrad in AI, postgrad research in AI for mental health. And just about a year and a half ago, I thought maybe we're finally at a point where AI could actually help people with their mental health directly. So Neil was looking to start the same company as me, basically. He met with about every investor under the sun and said, hey, what's the right way to start a business like this? How do I find the right team? And he met my brother, who is an investor at Sequoia. And my brother was like, you just need to meet my brother. He flew back to New York from some conference. We met on a Sunday. We took a walk together. And Neil was like, well, okay, if we just suspend reality for a moment, assume there are no constraints, like how would we build this business? We ended up extending our walk to like 3+ hours. We actually went to an office, went to a whiteboard, drew out a master plan, and that basically became the business. The next day we got to work.
So at Slingshot, we're building a foundation model for psychology. And what that means is that we actually want to build AI that can help people directly by interfacing with them. We do that by essentially training the world's first AI model that's actually learning from human therapy. So we've built one of the world's largest and most diverse data sets of human therapy. We train models on that. Then we have a clinical team that will go in and adjust those models to convert human therapy into AI therapy. And then we're using really sophisticated reinforcement learning techniques to help figure out what actually works for each person and how can we design AI models that can infinitely scale to help everyone.
I mean, we all know that there's a huge shortage of mental health care providers and there's a huge mental health crisis. There are a lot of people who want access to care. There aren't nearly enough people to offer it. The solution, kind of obvious, will be AI. It's just a matter of like, can AI actually do it? The way I see the problem though, the problem is finding someone that can actually connect with you, right? If you can try to find a therapist, in a lot of the US, waiting lists are as long as a year. But if you actually find a therapist and they can fit into your life and your schedule and they're actually covered by insurance, finding that person who can connect with you, who understands your values, who can speak to you in a way that shows you, empathy and understanding, a way that reaches you, a way that can actually help you change your mind in your life, that's insanely hard to find. So the question is, what if we could actually learn from the huge variation in therapists, from therapists that are much more cognitive or much more emotional, much more, psychoeducational or psychodynamic, more spiritual, more secular, learn from that huge range of CBT, DBT, ACT, IFS, psychodynamic therapy, motivational interviewing, put it all together into one model and identify what would actually help you. So we do that with a 3-step process. First, we've created the largest data set of behavioral health data, the largest and most diverse data set. And we've created that through partnerships. And that allows our model to use this entire action grammar, the whole space of how embracing the diversity and how different people practice. Secondly, we do fine tuning, which is where our clinical team interacts with model. And that's how we learn how to do AI therapy as opposed to human therapy. So understanding every element of the stack of what goes into AI therapy, we put excruciating detail into how does a conversation start and what do you talk to an AI about, all the way down to when you're talking to an AI, how long should it pause and let you think for a little bit longer before it responds. So that's our fine tuning. And then finally, we do reinforcement learning, which is where we train a value model to understand how things are actually going. We have a huge amount of signal in our conversations about how things are going. And that's everything from if the user starts crying or says, I just shared something I've never shared with anyone else before. Or they say, hey, that makes no sense. I have no idea what you're saying at this point. Or if they tell us ultimately that they're achieving their goals, right? That all provides us signal on how we're doing. We're able to use that to train a value model to understand how different messages, how different words, how different phrases would affect you and optimize the model in real time through continuous online learning to be better and better. And if we're successful, we'll be creating an entirely new modality of therapy to help a generation of people enter a world that's completely different than the one they grew up in.
everything we do is obsessively focused on our end user. We are delivering something that we want to be available 24/7. It's in your pocket. So it's actually a consumer application that you could talk to over text or voice, but everything inside has been handcrafted, from the voices to how long it takes for the voices to respond to you, to how long the text messages take to come and in sequence. And so we're trying to think about this as a fully vertical company where we control the entire experience, because at its core, what we're trying to do is drive emotion for people, right? If we want people to be able to process their emotions, we have to figure out how can we use technology to help create a bond for people to be able to move through those things.
And we have to give people a chance to kind of let go and put themselves in the arms of the therapist, right? That's sort of what you're doing. So I think a lot of the challenge on the user experience is creating the right environment for people to get the right therapist, the right sense of trust that they're talking to the right person that's going to help them in the right way. A lot of our work is just making sure that we can allow it to be seamless, to be effortless, really, to get into the conversation. If we're successful, it means that people don't have to interact with this in a highly structured way at highly structured times, that they can fit this into their life where it makes sense, where they can work incrementally and talk 3 times a week if that's the right fit for them, or 1 time a week, or talk, every day for 12 weeks and then, take a break for a little bit. It's a much more flexible way of interacting that should work in a different way for different people. We have noticed one of the struggles with comparing it to human therapy is just the level of memory is just so much higher. There are expectations you have. You start developing expectations like instant responses that come across really thoughtful, that incorporate, patterns, and are able to say, that's the 3rd time that you've brought up something like that. You haven't said that much to me, but you've complained about your family 3 times. And I just want to point that out. And those kinds of interactions are a little bit more unique from an AI that can bring together all this information and all of its knowledge in a way that a human couldn't. It is, sometimes that slightly more robotic thing actually is really helpful when you know that you are talking to a robot.
It also helps people see progress over time. One of the things that people talk about often is this idea that today after a session, our AI will give you an insight. Here's what we thought about what we talked about today. But actually every week or every couple of weeks, it'll also start to drop, trends for you and help you see, here are the different things that are going on in your life. Here are connections that you may not have seen. Here are things that, threads that we could be pulling on. And what's amazing is that AI can have that infinite context, right? It can pull from the many, many dozens of hours that you've talked to it, other things that are going on in your life to help you see things that you may never have seen before.
And that could be also the analysis of what words you're using, what words you're not using, what you're not saying as much as what you are, what topics, maybe it's time to finally go into. It's
what you're avoiding.
Yeah. A lot of the user experience is bringing together all of the conversations and giving you something to look at when you open the app. We have content that will come from your conversations that will just surface on the app. Our hope, our goal is that ultimately when people open the app, it should give them some sort of feeling beyond just what they get from the conversations, to just remember the topics they're talking about, just to remember the progress they're making, the insights they've been having.
We're designing something that's direct to consumer. So we want to design a product that's ultimately designed for people to use directly. We think it's really important for a couple of reasons. One, it's very rare to see enterprise products that sell through businesses building really great consumer experiences. And our ambition is to build something that's like Netflix in the sense that it's in everybody's pocket in the world, right? That has global scale, that can figure out how to work for everybody. And we think to do that, it's really important to own that end relationship with your customer, to figure out what's working for them. How do you get that direct feedback? What do they love? What do they hate? I mean, we talk to customers every single day to figure out what's working for them and how can we continue to massage what we're building for them.
Yeah, I think the other challenge is just there aren't enough therapists. The kind of people that we serve often tell us, I had nowhere else to go, right? Therapy wasn't built for me, or I wasn't able to find people that understand me. So we would be reducing our ambitions a lot. I think if we required ourselves to work within a system that we're constantly told doesn't work for people, a system where people do feel left out. And I think we've also learned through the psychological research that therapeutic alliance is very meaningful, which is really just to say patients know how it's going. There's some myth that therapists know how it's going and the person doesn't. And it seems like in reality, our metrics show that if you ask people, do you feel like you're working on the right things? Do you feel like you're working on them in the right way? Do you feel like you've collaborated to set goals? Do you feel like you have mutual respect? Those questions deeply correlate with every success metric. So if we want to make sure that we're being successful, we want to tie that to the end user. We want the user to determine whether we're successful. It's not enough for a psychologist to tell us that we are successful. We need to actually reach the user and, work within their own value system and how they define success.
One version of the future, which I think is interesting, I think we're definitely like abundance pill agenda'd. And so we think about it as like, imagine a world where access to this care is unlimited.
Yeah.
So much of life, we think about it from a scarcity lens, right? We think about it as we want to get people access, but we can't afford it. They can't find it. How am I going to find the time? Now imagine a world where it's in your pocket and we can give it to everybody because the cost of this effectively rounds to zero. Right?
Yeah.
I think that world seems very interesting and like one that we should chase no matter what.